Well, hello and welcome everybody to the first webinar of KeySCAPE Landscape series aimed at providing insights on how technology can help landscape designers save time and improve accuracy while enabling even greater creativity. My name is Ken Deese and I'm part of the marketing team here at KeySCAPE. Your presenter today is Nate Qualls, U.S. product support lead here at KeySCAPE. Nate's a 10-year landscape architect veteran with experience at firms of all sizes. And our goal today is, over the next 40 minutes or so, is to share with you how KeySCAPE LandCAD is helping firms of all sizes win back time. Time to grow revenues by helping you take on more projects, generate more profits by completing those projects that you do have even faster. Increasing design quality or quality assurance to, enhance your reputation because you have more time to be even more creative in what it is you're designing. So that's what we intend to try to demonstrate to you over the next 40 minutes or so. So without further ado, I will turn things over to Nate. Nate?
Thanks, Ken. Nate here. So let's dive in and let's look a little bit about AutoCAD, some pros, some cons. First off, this webinar is not intended to be a knock on Autodesk or AutoCAD. There are many advantages to working in the AutoCAD world. Large industry adoption, our talent pool of landscape architects and designers are mostly comfortable in this platform. There is some exchange between Autodesk products, such as Civil and AutoCAD all use the regular DWG format, and there's even a lot of interchange possibilities with third-party software, SketchUp, Rhino, other rendering tools that all accept the DWG format. But there are some shortcomings of just using vanilla AutoCAD. AutoCAD was designed to serve hundreds of design fields ranging from architecture and landscape architecture through circuit board design and pharmaceutical applications. In light of this, many landscape architecture firms have developed a hodgepodge of workarounds to gain some of the efficiencies that other trades already enjoy from either their Autodesk product or other software providers. Civils have Civil 3D, architects have Revit or other BIM compliant solutions to choose from, but there's really nothing out there specifically for landscape architects. As an Autodesk partner, Autodesk has encouraged us, KeySCAPE, to continue to develop solutions for landscape architects, as our market is just too small for them to address with a dedicated product. So on the top of the screen here, I have the default ribbon interface from AutoCAD. Love it or hate it, that's where AutoCAD is and Autodesk is pushing their product. We still have the menu bar, but toolbars are starting to be phased out in Autodesk products. So this is the ribbon interface. At the bottom we have the KeySCAPE interface. As you can see, it's a modern interface that seamlessly works into the CAD environment. We're simply a plugin for AutoCAD. Current AutoCAD users will find our interface very familiar. When you're in the KeySCAPE environment, all AutoCAD functionality is preserved. We just fill in the gaps that extend a landscape architect's capability, extend the scope of work you're able to take on, optimize a project's workflow from inventory and analysis all the way through construction phases, and expedite tedious manual processes and handling revisions by leveraging our dynamic smart objects. So this is the chart that's going to guide our demonstration today. Let me turn on my pointer here. And on the top we have an AutoCAD workflow. This is a typical workflow. It's not the end-all, this is not the absolute, but this is something I saw in the field a lot. It also applies to other adjacent planning fields like land planning, urban planning, even design build workflows. The horizontal connections, such as the ones connecting most of the KeySCAPE LandCAD workflow, represent an efficient connection between project phases or between different trades or your consultants. The vertical jogs and the back and forths here represent bottlenecks, opportunities for possible mistakes, and even roadblocks in collaboration. The end goal of implementing any technology, or this technology beyond AutoCAD, as Ken said, is to win back time. Take on more projects, get projects done faster, increase your quality of design through winning time back, or giving yourself some personal time back and limiting the 60, 80-hour weeks that some of us experience from time to time. So the first phase I'm going to look at is just base plan generation, data collection, the kind of things that happen at project kickoff or even earlier in the proposal phase as you're looking at winning that job. This is where we as landscape architects are piecing together all the components that will inform our design decisions. And this data, as you know, may come from surveyors, civil engineers, architects, public data, or many others. The data formats may be as varied as the number of consultants you're dealing with. In the AutoCAD environment, just by using AutoCAD, you're in a fairly good position. In an ideal world, all the members of the team would be working in a universal, open source, exchange data format. But the reality right now is that, the vendors would rather you lock into a proprietary data format. Therefore, as we see it, the AutoCAD DWG is the closest to being a universal format we have right now. Almost every CAD program, even outside of AutoCAD, can import or export DWG. But we feel that choosing an AutoCAD-based solution is the best way to ensure you can collaborate with most of your partners. But with an AutoCAD-only environment, you are still at the mercy of, say, like your civil engineer who's building surface models and doing drainage modeling that you really can't access or manipulate. If they do share that data, once you have it, what can you actually do with it? And then on these pages, I'm going to list some questions that are things I would ask myself when I'm assessing my current technology needs, if my current solution is filling those needs, and what I would look for when I was looking for a prospective solution to expand the capability of your practice. So I'm not going to go through all these, but BIM mandates are becoming more and more prevalent. A lot of landscape architects are being forced into a solution like Revit that might not be built for them. This is something we've addressed in KeySCAPE LandCAD, as we've been in the UK for the past number of years and have been mandated for public procurement jobs to work in a BIM enabled environment. So what KeySCAPE brings to the table is a variety of data formats. LandXML is particularly powerful, working with civil engineers, and even exporting your surfaces, whether they're proposed or existing, into Revit. Also becoming more prevalent right now is point cloud data. Drone surveys are becoming a cost-effective way for firms to get a grasp on the site they're dealing with outside of hiring an actual surveyor. But we also can help you import survey data, whether that's 3D line work, whether that's point files, boring data from subsurface exploration. And we also have, beyond LandXML, an export to Revit tool that allows you to bring your design into the Revit environment with all the data attached to it, which I'll get into a little bit more later. So having all this enables you to work in a more accurate, quantifiable environment. It allows for better design decisions. As I move forward, you'll see that many tedious processes throughout analysis and design phases, things like interpolating contours, identifying spot elevation, slope analysis, or even locating plant material not only in the XY coordinates but also in the Z coordinate for preparing 3D renderings. All these are optimized once you're starting to work with surface models, and that all starts here with your base data. So I'm going to go through a little demonstration here in KeySCAPE. What I have is, say, a building footprint that we got from the architect. You know, they sent you a DWG snapshot from Revit, or they sent you their base files. And you know, we might not know exactly where in space, where on the site we want to put this building, what the finished floor elevation might be to optimize cut and fill. So what we're going to do is bring in our civil engineers land XML file. They created this in Civil 3D. We said, hey, can you send us the XML file so we can have all that data, all that work that they may have done up front, or all that work that the surveyor did up front in the exact same format with the exact same amount of accuracy that they have. So here I'm just giving some names to some of the objects I'm bringing in. The parcel boundary, as you can see, I brought in, it's accurate, you know, it's the same meets and bounds as a surveyor would have used. The surface model is in the drawing now. It hasn't been visualized yet, but it is there. If I were to drop a spot elevation now, it would reference that existing. The first thing I'm going to do, though, is generate some contours off that existing terrain. You know, just easier for the landscape architect to visualize things, at least for me anyway, to really understand the site from the contours. I know that it's hard for clients maybe or other trades to really visualize from contours, but this is the starting point I like to have. So there we have intermediate and index contours generated from that exact same surface our civil was using. I'm going to go ahead and freeze those off though, and let's triangulate that, that existing surface. This doesn't have to be done at this point in time. Large sites, you know, can have lots of data, and going straight into 3D could have an impact on the performance of your drawing. So sometimes I'll just leave this out until I actually need it for, say, an isometric view, or starting down a workflow of creating a rendering. And all this is achievable in an interface that's much more intuitive to the landscape architect and the things they need it for. Other suites like Civil can achieve some of this functionality. It's a bit overkill. You know, Civil is a product designed for projects ranging up to, you know, highway alignment projects, large infrastructure projects. Not to say it can't be done, it's just a bit overkill and a bit cumbersome. So now I've identified a few spot elevations around my building. This could help me identify the correct finished floor, or at least get me a base point. So when I go into my next phases and start checking cut and fill balances, start developing some preliminary grading, I'm going to have a framework to start from. And so here I've got some other line work I brought in. Again, DWG format, so a lot of different contributors can all come together to create your base plan. Moving on, you know, site inventory and analysis is probably the next thing you're going to look at. We have all the data. We shared it with our partners as needed. Now we need to understand the site and how it will affect our design decisions. As you can see, let me get my laser pointer back. Up here we have a bit of an impasse on the AutoCAD only front. There's really no way to do this analysis in an automated way in the AutoCAD only environment. In KeySCAPE, we equip you with some tools to quickly, within 30 minutes or so, generate things like slope analysis, aspect analysis, elevation, and water flow analysis. So some of the questions I asked myself if I was considering a new product is, you know, how are we doing analysis today? How are you defending your design decisions? Do you know exactly what that site is capable of? And are we preparing ourselves to not be surprised by field conditions? In AutoCAD only, you know, what would your options be? I guess we would ask the civil engineer to run some calculations for you. You could purchase a license of civil, train up one of your designers or architects, and go to that person every time you need to get something done. Or you get out your note card and your scale and you do it the old-fashioned way. I think what KeySCAPE can provide is a way to expand what you can provide, how you can quantify your design decisions, and how you can give your client the assurance that you are being a responsible steward of their property and of their investment. If that makes sense, then KeySCAPE could be a good fit. So, like I said earlier, what we give you and what we give the landscape architect are tools they need to get the job done. It's not overkill. It's not a steep learning curve. The idea is to have KeySCAPE empower every member of your staff or every member of your landscape architecture team to understand the opportunities and constraints and make the decisions that steer the following design phases I'm going to go through. So this demo here, I know I've got some site data on here, but or some parking lot layout. It's a little bit probably beyond this phase. But what I really want to demonstrate here is how we can quickly analyze slopes and perform some other analysis very quickly. Here I'm setting slope ranges. This can be anything that you see as important, whether that's ADA compliance, whether that's buildable slopes, erosion control, whatever the jurisdiction or municipality you're working within requires. And what I have here is takeoffs of these different ranges. So I have buildable area takeoffs. So the takeaway here is that this isn't just a pretty picture, it's quantifiable. So even if you're doing a feasibility study for a piece of land that maybe the developer or your client doesn't even own yet, you can really give them some insight and provide them some value add before they make that investment. Same thing with aspect, which is becoming more and more important as we're considering solar products for our buildings, solar gain from heating standpoints. Again, easy to template this out the way that you see fit, save those standards in a global area so that every member of your team can generate a repeatable process every time they need to create this data. Here I'm going to do look at some flow lines. So I have an existing terrain, and with this tool I can just kind of click around the site and understand water flow as it's going to do a drip study. So just good to understand basically where water's going off site, where you need to stop it, where you need to allow it, or where you might need to retain it. All right. So on to the fun stuff, concept development. So as you can see, we're starting to develop a theme of workflow efficiency. We're trying to straighten out our process by providing a software package that complements AutoCAD and it fills in the gaps that matter most to landscape architects. So concept development. Let's move on to our questions, our key questions we might ask ourselves here. How are we generating conceptual designs? At what level are these being developed in digital environment or being brought into a digital environment? How feasible are these concepts? Are they related to real-world data and cost estimates? And the most important thing, is it buildable? This is the part of the project we all went to school for that we're passionate about. Most practitioners develop their preliminary concepts by hand, and that's what I do. I think it's the best way to generate unique ideas. We're not proposing that our technology will improve your creative design, but it will make it more accurate, quantifiable, and determine constructability early in the process. The time savings you can get in other phases, things like optimizing quantity takeoffs, dynamic editing and revision handling, this is the time that you can win back and spend here where it's most important. The problem that I usually ran into was transitioning from that hand sketch, that hand drawing, into the digital environment. Maybe you're doing that transition yourself. Maybe you're handing it off to a drafter or a new hire or a new designer. There's a lot of variables that happen in there, but using KeySCAPE's tools, things like our digitation tools, cut fill calculations, quantity takeoffs, quickly being able to visualize the impact of your decisions really helps bring concepts quicker into a real world situation. You can analyze these concepts from a feasibility standpoint, get a handle on budget and constructability, like I said, get that 3D framework built so that when you do move forward with a preliminary concept and do an extensive rendering or hire an outside illustrator, whatever you might do, that you're not wasting time and money on a concept that just didn't work in the first place. Another theme that we're going to start introducing here is the ability to quickly iterate a design, not having to start from scratch. Now that we've determined a feasible concept, not to worry about late stage revisions coming in and blowing the budget or impacting your timetable on another project. So moving back to KeySCAPE, what we've done here is we've identified a finished floor elevation for our footprint, and we've projected some slopes from that footprint down to the existing surface. You can see this is a good baseline, figuring out if where we position this building makes sense from a cut and fill standpoint. We've already identified that on the north side of the site, the slopes were taking us out of the boundary of the site, so we put in a retaining wall there. We knew we'd need. You can see based on the existing contours that we're cutting uphill or filling downhill. But what would be handy to know is how we can quantify that. I'm going to turn on a few of the surfaces. Here we go. This really visualizes the way we're cutting into the hill uphill. And of course, this is only a starting point. We'd want to refine this. There's other design elements such as sidewalks and parking lots we're going to have to account for. But like I said, it's an iterative process. We're creating surfaces, we're creating contours, and refining as we go. So right now we know that we have an excess of fill. We're going to put that report in the drawing here so we can reference it, this little snapshot in time. And there we go, it's 36,000 cubic yards of cut and 53,000 of fill. Moving forward, we've brought in some of the other design elements, parking lots, other drives, sidewalks. Here I want to do a quick visualization, look at some massing, maybe even start putting some conceptual plant material around the site to get a feel of what it's going to take to soften the massing of this building. At this point I'm going to put in some trees, just using our quick add feature. They're going to be simple trees, just circles at this point, more of a form-based conceptual design. We don't necessarily know what these species are yet. We just know, here's a 15-foot ornamental tree. Let's put a few of these around the site. And what we're doing is we told the program that we want to use proposed surface 2 to associate this plant material with. You can see I'm working in a 2D environment, and my simple circle symbols are snapping to the Z value automatically. If I were to move these objects around the site, they would still maintain that relationship and snap to that new Z value wherever it may be. When we're ready to start visualizing this in a 3D manner, all it takes is swapping out our simple conceptual circles for a 3D block. hit OK, and now you can see our objects there. Again, AutoCAD is a wonderful rendering tool if you have tackled that learning curve. A lot of people at this point will get the bones of the site understood, so getting a proposed condition, some building massing, some vegetation, and then export it in the DWG format to the rendering software of your choice, whether you want to finish off in SketchUp or Rhino or whatever that may be. And that's kind of where we're going to land here on our next section. So we've synthesized multiple concepts down to a final concept we want to move forward with. And the challenge here is, as you know, is to communicate design to your client. And from there, how do we move from this conceptual rendering to a construction drawing that's buildable? Again, we have a bit of a break here in the AutoCAD process. So you're doing that final rendering, and you're probably, doing that in SketchUp or Photoshop. And then digitizing that concept can be a challenge because you haven't started that rendering with this quantifiable base data and framework underneath it. Where in KeySCAPE, even though you might use a third-party rendering tool if you prefer, you know that grading plan, that the takeoffs, the cut fill calcs are all in the background defending your design decision. So here's a few key questions I would ask about your technology assessment here. Do your clients even need 3D renderings? What is the point of 3D? A lot of people think that BIM is 3D, but BIM is really just tying data to objects. 3D can or doesn't have to be a part of that process. Are you outsourcing your renderings? Is that costly? Would it make sense to bring that in-house if it was easier to do? And how do we get back to that buildable realm, the construction documents? So in KeySCAPE, kind of what we say is we have the one source of truth. If you remember back to the diagram, the way it's a very horizontal workflow, you're not going to a lot of outside third-party design software or third-party consultants to get this stuff done. Maintaining one source of truth, having that definitive backbone, that 3D framework in the background, really enables you to carry through some design integrity through schematic development and construction phases. Let's demonstrate some of that functionality. This is a different project here, and I picked it because it has a bit more level of detail to it. And what we are wanting to do is visualize these trees. Again, similar to how I ended that last demonstration, that's kind of where I'm picking up here is, so we're getting that framework prepared for our rendering, our presentation graphic. What I'm going to do is pick every single tree in this project and assign it to my proposed surface. I have the proposed surface turned off right now, but here we are, they all popped up in the air at the appropriate elevation. Let's orbit around here a bit. Excuse the jumpiness of my laptop. So let's turn on our proposed. There it goes. So there we've done some simple building massing based on the architect's 2D model. If they have 3D models, great. We can work with that in the DWG environment. And now we have the trees situated in space correctly. Again, we just need to go through and change the specimens over to a representative 3D form. Now this could be, we have a great library of 3D symbols here and 2D symbols. This is all customizable though to whatever you prefer to use in your practice. If there is a CAD standard established already, we can take those blocks and insert them in the library. Same thing with the 3D symbols. If you take this into SketchUp, say, and you realize, well, I don't really like this tree symbol that much, it's very easy at that point even to swap out that 3D symbol for a different 3D symbol, maintaining the scale of it and the position and space of that object. So we used KeySCAPE to do a framework of our final rendering. We sent it out to SketchUp, or we just kept refining it in AutoCAD, and we got sign off from our client. And this is where the process gets very iterative, and this is where a lot of efficiencies can be gained here. At this point, there's a lot of moving pieces at play. Project managers are starting to buckle down on the billable hours. Architects are changing their footprints. The civils are adjusting grading and structure elevations as they continue to refine their drainage designs. And we're starting to look at costs even more closely. So the key questions have to do with, how are we collaborating? How are we handling our internal revisions and our consultants or our external partners' revisions? And how are we keeping tabs on costs? In AutoCAD only, design development usually involves, you do a layout in AutoCAD, you do takeoffs based on polyline boundaries, linear takeoffs, you might calculate wall face based on linear takeoffs times height of your retaining wall. You put this data into a spreadsheet, you assign cost to it, you see the implication, and then you repeat the process over again. This compounds the chance for error, especially if you're splitting the work between several staff members to meet the deadline, and everybody has their unique way of doing things. In KeySCAPE, we have some automation tools that really speed up that process. So managing specifications, using smart objects that contains the specification data in them, things like plant material or paving areas, for example. Those things that can generate automatic schedules or automatic cost estimates. The ability to quickly address revisions globally across the drawing. So if for example, one piece of plant material is not available at the nursery, or you discover it's not suitable for that environment, you can just globally swap those out, including the symbol or the size or the spacing or the density of that object. It's important as ever here as well to be able to speak the same language and work seamlessly with your partners. Using interchange data formats like LandXML, establishing a central repository for data, enabling quick turnarounds of revisions. These are all things we can do to, one, start moving towards a BIM compliant workflow, and to equip ourselves to avoid coordination mistakes and budget overruns. In KeySCAPE, we offer many small efficiency gains that culminate into a greater overall gain. The things I just mentioned, we'll go through here in a demonstration in a moment. But we're also, we're not just making one final decision. We're iterating over time. We're adding a paving pattern and then changing that paving pattern, and then specifying the material, the texture, and the color as we do more research and as we understand our design and the site more clearly. So here we're going to demonstrate some of the dynamic scheduling capabilities within KeySCAPE. So here I've decided to increase the density of that planting area. I automatically generated a specification label, so 32 plants there. Let me turn on my link line layer so you can see how I'm connecting these plants together. And we've placed these plants really just symbolically using regular old AutoCAD blocks. We know that some are perennials, we know that some are evergreen or coniferous, some are woody plants. but now we're going to start assigning more specific data to it. So we know with those 5 are ligustrum. And I can place this label, place this leader at this point. I don't even have to label it this time. I can just tag it with this information. This is all coming from, a plant list I've developed. It's the one I prefer for this type of job and in this location. You can have multiple plant lists for multiple clients or multiple geographic locations. And once you have things like preferred plant list built out, you can see that building out a design is very quick. There's a lot less chance of error here, as our schedule on the right-hand side is automatically being updated with the material I'm tagging here. And then if I decide I want to decrease density or manually erase some objects, it's going to dynamically update that schedule. If I want to swap out one species for another, so this privet I'm going to swap out. I'll just pick something random just for the sake of demonstration with a different symbol even. Click OK, and apply that to the entire drawing. And now all those symbols have changed and all of our support material has updated with that. We can also use these schedule tables as cost estimates. So let's go into the schedule editor, and I want to add a couple fields to that schedule. This editor is where you can really dial in the information that's most important for you or most important to communicate to your installer. So I'm going to add unit prices and total costs to my table here. Maybe this is something we just keep internally. It's a cost estimate for our use. You have multiple schedules on a project, and multiple schedule styles. So now we have those fields established. The benefit again of working with plant lists is that we can assign prices to things, and then on the next project have access to those prices. You can add increase the price by percentage if you're building in a contingency or something like that. But very quick to get tabs on what's going on in your project. So this is the last phase of iteration, and we're beginning that final documentation. Our plans are getting more dialed in. We're starting to put together our spec documents. We may not have a lot of hours left in our budget for surprises. If you're the prime consultant, you're starting to get in plans from your consultants, needing to merge those into sheet sets, or you're sending out friendly reminders that the deadline is approaching and kind of start your prodding process. If you're not the prime, you probably just received the latest design files from the prime consultant, and you need to quickly adjust your plans to accommodate changes. Another point is if the architect is a prime, they may be asking for your design in a Revit format. If you've been working in plain AutoCAD, you're probably going to have to recreate your design, or they'll have to recreate the design in Revit. With KeySCAPE, we have an export tool that allows you to contribute your scope of work automatically. But the most important factors here, as we all know, is limiting liability and clearly communicating your design to the client and to the contractor. So here's a set of questions I'd ask myself when I'm doing a technology assessment. How do you handle last-minute revisions? Are you making things harder for your prime consultant, or are you, helping them out and building that relationship with them? And does the contractor understand what you're trying to design? In the AutoCAD only office, late stage revisions often have a trickle-down effect across the project. Remembering to check all the boxes, update annotation, your schedules, all while bringing your drawing up to that uniform CAD standard that you've established as a company, can be a tedious process, and again, is a potential for error. Establishing CAD standards is a challenge for every office that I've been in. We have a giant folder hierarchy of template files, of blocks, text styles, leader styles, dim styles, and there's usually somebody in the firm that's responsible for managing all these resources, and they spend a lot of time updating and ensuring that everybody on the team is working with the latest and greatest standard. In KeySCAPE, you're always able to work in a uniform CAD standard, and that standard you establish is fully customizable to match basically any look and feel that your office might have. Your clients won't know that you're using KeySCAPE because we're able to very closely match that signature plan set that you use as a benchmark. Style files created in KeySCAPE can be located in a centralized network location along with your material databases, your plant databases, to guarantee that all of your team members are adhering to the same standards and have access to the same information. So whether you're simply contributing to a DWG planting plan, or you're coordinating grading decisions with a civil engineer, or your architect would like to see your design as part of their Revit model, KeySCAPE has you covered. So here we have, kind of transitioning from an illustrative type of plan into our construction document standard. Let me make sure my video is playing. There we go. So things like getting all of the labels uniform, getting all the symbology into that simple but readable construction document format. Is this as simple as using that same specification manager or your plant list that has a predefined symbol to quickly get into this next phase of design? So again, I just want a simple circle there, apply it globally to the drawing, and now every tree of that species has the same symbol. I'm going to go into my style manager, and this is where I can, from that central location on our server or whatever, bring in our, preferred label style. And so if, these can be, locked down to read-only so that they can't be modified to deviate from the CAD standard, or if you do make a change, that change is made, office-wide. Everybody has access to this data. So right now I'm bringing in a balloon or a circle style label just to kind of show how flexible the system is. So whether it's abbreviations or common name or scientific name or call-out bubbles, we can accommodate most requirements. And things like leaders are very intuitive. When you move things around, they're going to stay attached to the plant material. But now I'm going to bring this back to the uniform style that I've used on the rest of this drawing. And this is one I've developed for 20 scale with a particular font that I prefer. And I like to line things up a bit. We can do that. And then finally, we've decided that we're spending a lot of money on these grass areas. And so what I want to do is decrease the density of our planting. This is, value engineering is always something that pops in at about this point in the project. And being able to automate some of that process can really avoid cost overruns or having to ask for additional fee. And there, every single feather grass in the project has now been reduced in density. Or you could have just done it to specific areas. And that's kind of a quick overview of how we look at the world of the landscape architect, how we're developing tools to help landscape architects work more efficiently, more streamlined, win back time. I'm going to hand it back over to Ken now, and he's going to give a little recap and sign us off.
Thanks, Nate. So hopefully you've gotten a good sense for how KeySCAPE LandCAD can help you win back time. This is really a large reason why our clients choose us to help really increase their design capacity by streamlining production processes and easing landscapes architects' collaboration with civil engineers and architects. So if you'd like to win back some time for your firm, you can contact Mike Schumann here at Keysoft. We want to thank you for attending today, and be on the lookout for an invitation to our next webinar, which is on alternatives to being forced to use Revit for BIM. So that's coming up on the 21st of February, so look for an invitation then. On behalf of Nate, myself, and the entire Keysoft team, thank you very much.